Welcome to Unit 7 of OnlinePHPClass.com, and in this unit we're going to talk about MySQL. So why MySQL? Well, MySQL is a database, and from a database perspective you have to have a place to store your dynamic data. You can use flat file storage, though databases allow for easy management and access of data. In addition, databases help from a performance perspective. MySQL is free and open source and is a database solution that works rather well. And I have here a note, as we've talked about several times already, the LAMP stack, Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP, which is what we're talking about in this course. Now I want to talk about PHPMyAdmin, and first of all, what it is. PHPMyAdmin, the name of PHPMyAdmin can be broken down to three parts: PHP, My, and Admin. PHP because it's a set of PHP scripts, My for MySQL, and Admin because of its function to administer MySQL using PHP. There's also a Postgres version. I don't exactly remember its name. I think it's PHP PGAdmin or something like that. That is used to administer Postgres. PHPMyAdmin will help you save time, increase efficiency, increase accuracy, and is very easy for beginners while providing complex operations for experienced DBAs. So we will be using PHPMyAdmin in this course. PHPMyAdmin is already installed with XAMPP, and you can download it from the web for regular installations. It's an open source product and project. So for open source for regular installations, you can download it and install it. Here's a note. Although this is not a course in detailed database design, I want to provide you with an acronym a professor once taught me for when building database-driven applications, which is what we are doing. And the acronym is CRUD, which stands for Create, Read, Update, Delete. In fact, the professor who taught it to me says that they typically don't teach it anymore. It seems to be an outdated acronym, but yet he still teaches it because it's very, very relevant. And I use it all the time because it helps me translate to insert, select, update, and delete from a MySQL perspective. Meaning, whenever we're building a database-driven application, we should have the ability to create rows and put data into the database, read the data from the database, update the data in the database, and delete the data from the database. So that keeps me on task when I'm building my use cases and whatnot for the database-driven application. Now I'm going to dive right into some of the MySQL functions. Okay, so to open or reuse a connection to a MySQL server, the function from PHP is MySQL_connect. And as you can see, it's fairly got a lot of options you can pass it, as well as default parameters. It returns a resource, which is a connection resource. And notice that all of the options are optional. In fact, if you don't pass any option, MySQL Connect will attempt to use a connection that was already established. So the first parameter is the server, and it defaults to what you specify in your php.ini. In your php.ini, you can specify the default MySQL server, default MySQL username, and default MySQL password. So you have the first parameter being the server, the second parameter being the username, the third parameter being the password, and the fourth parameter being a boolean for a new link, and the fifth parameter being client flags. I typically don't use new link or client flags. If you pass it the server, the username and the password, you should be okay. Keep in mind that the server is any kind of it can be an NS, I was going to say an NS lookup name, but basically it can be a DNS entry, so you can put the name of the physical server if it can be resolved from the server that your MySQL server is on. You can put an IP address. A lot of times you'll use my localhost. I know for GoDaddy hosting accounts, typically it's not localhost. Typically there's a very specific database server that they have set up that they give you. So keep that in mind. You just specify that, and it's the username and password for the database. So we're going to actually have to create a database and user and password privileges so that you can utilize them, and then that's what goes into the connect string. The second bullet point mentions that there's also a MySQL underscore pconnect, which is available if you want the connection to persist when the script exits. That should say exits, not exists. It uses the same syntax. So basically, when your script terminates, the PHP script terminates, the MySQL connection will terminate as well if you just use MySQL underscore connect. If you want the script, the connection to persist, use MySQL underscore pconnect. Just make sure you have to close, you have to handle closing the connection. Otherwise, there's a limit on the number of persisting connections, and you end up reaching that limit rather quickly. Although I began by using MySQL underscore pconnect, a little bit of further research indicated that I could just still get by with MySQL underscore connect, because MySQL underscore connect will not see, there's a misconception. Some people think that MySQL underscore connect will establish a new connection every time it's called. That's not true. If you pass it the same server username and password information, it will actually go out and see if it has an existing connection to that server. And if it does, it'll utilize that. So typically, that's how I do it. I have an include file for database connectivity, and I include it. And then maybe the script that I'm executing includes another file. Well, if the file that's being included also sources in the database functions and connection function, then it'll use the exact same connection, not spawning additional connections. So to me, it's a way to have the same connections be utilized, and at the same time have those connections terminate when the script terminates, be it a legitimate termination from expected code or an exception that terminates the script. Either way, the connection then terminates. So I tend to use MySQL underscore connect at this point. Next, we have MySQL underscore select underscore DB, and that function is used to select the database after connecting to the MySQL server. So basically what you'll do is you'll connect to the MySQL server, select the database, and then issue queries against it. And this function returns a Boolean, and you pass it the database name as well as the link identifier, or the resource, which is the return from the MySQL underscore connect. You do have to pass it a database name. That is required. The resource is not. If you don't pass it a database name, it'll go out and look for an existing MySQL resource. And I believe it uses the last resource that it found. I typically don't open multiple connections on multiple databases. I typically don't need to do that from a MySQL perspective. So typically, if I don't specify the resource, it's just going to use the last. It's going to use the one that I opened, because I only opened one. Okay. Next, we have MySQL underscore query. MySQL underscore query allows you to run a MySQL query. Pretty straightforward there. You can manipulate the database structure this way as long as the user has access. So you can automate database operations. Basically, like I said, you'll open a connection to a MySQL server, you'll select a database, and you'll run queries against it. This is as if you're running any kind of query against MySQL. It's literally the way to connect PHP to MySQL from a query perspective. So if you're creating tables, you can do that through here as well. A lot of times you'll be doing, inserts, updates, deletes, that kind of thing. If you actually do table manipulations like creates and alters and drops and that kind of thing, you can do that too. Any type of MySQL query, you can pass through MySQL underscore query. So it returns a resource, and you pass it the query string, as well as optionally the link identifier, which is the MySQL connection. Keep in mind that yes, I was going to say when you do a select DB, you're literally selecting the database for that particular connection. So the reason why you don't have to pass it the database name here, and the reason why the select DB does not actually return a resource, is because by doing the select DB, it's as if you're changing the connection to say, okay, not only is this connected to this MySQL server, it's also pointing to this database. So that's why you're just passing it the connection resource identifier. And the query string here can be, a string that says select star from table name, where table name is the name of the table, that kind of thing. And you'll get a MySQL query result resource value back. Now we'll talk about different functions that you can do with the MySQL resource that comes back from MySQL underscore query. You can do MySQL underscore num underscore rows, which will allow you to get the number of rows in the result set. It returns an integer, and you pass it the resource, the result resource, which comes from MySQL underscore query. So I just want to point out, so basically, if we go back to MySQL underscore query, an example would be $QR for query result equals MySQL underscore query open paren, quote, select star from table name, end quote, close paren, semicolon. Then from here you can do $NR for num rows equals MySQL underscore num underscore rows open paren $QR close paren semicolon, and you'll get the number of rows that that particular select query returned. And I have a note that says this particular function only works on the command this only works of the command usually select returns if the command. This only works if the command returns a result set. My apologies, I don't know what happened with these slides. But anyway, this only works if the command usually select returns a result set. If you want to determine how many rows were affected using insert update delete, use MySQL underscore affected underscore rows. Okay. So in the function for MySQL underscore affected underscore rows is the exact same, except you don't actually have to pass it a resource link identifier because it'll just use the open connection. Okay. Now we'll talk about different ways you can get the data from the MySQL result that comes from MySQL underscore query. One way is to use MySQL underscore result, which from php.net says retrieves the contents of one cell from a MySQL result set. I use this function when I want to return counts or one cell. So in other words, one row column pair from a MySQL database. What I mean by counts is a lot of times I might do like select count open paren star close paren from such and such a table where such and such. Okay, then I'll get there will only be one row and one cell returned. One row, one column, which is one cell returned. So I'll use MySQL underscore result to get that value because it's much more efficient if you're just getting one particular cell. MySQL underscore result returns a string. You pass it the result resource as well as the row and ultimately the field. So if I just want row 0, field 0, I'll pass it 0, 0 with and the field is of a mixed type, I believe, because you can in addition pass it the column name. So it can be a string or an integer. It's basically why it's of a mixed type. All right, MySQL underscore fetch underscore row. Using for each in MySQL underscore num underscore rows, we can use MySQL underscore fetch underscore row to increment through an enumerated array where the array represents columns and each cell to MySQL underscore fetch underscore row sets the array to a row. Basically, this function returns a row, a MySQL row from your result set. What it returns it from in the form of an array, and you pass it the result resource. So the array that you get back, the indexes of the array, 0, 1, 2, 3, etc., represent the columns in that particular row. So you increment through calling MySQL fetch underscore row, MySQL underscore fetch underscore row to get the different rows. And then by doing that, you have an array and you can check the columns. You then check the columns in that particular row. Okay? Just it's okay if it's a little out there right now. I'll be showing you some examples as we do the demo. You also have MySQL underscore fetch underscore soak, and this fetches the results as an associative array. Okay, this is nice because the indices of the array are the column names of the database table. So whereas MySQL underscore fetch underscore row, the indices are numbers representing the actual column number. This is using fetch underscore soak, you get the indices being the column names. so that, say, if you added a column into the middle of a database table, you wouldn't have to change all your fetch underscore rows. You're calling it by column name. So that's all fetch underscore soak does. MySQL underscore fetch underscore array, on the other hand, gives you the option to pick one or the other or both. You can fetch the row as a numeric array, associative array, where the index of the array is the column name, or both. If I expect the number of columns to be, fairly reasonable, I'll use the result type equal MySQL underscore both. And the reason why is by doing that, I actually double the size of the array I get returned. And because what will happen is in the array there are indices representing indices of integers representing the columns, and there are indices of strings representing the column names. So I can actually reference the column in any which way I want if I use MySQL underscore fetch underscore array. I want to briefly talk about SQL injection again. Remember, when you put user-provided text in a SQL command, the data must be sanitized. So always use string val, int val, and the sanitize functions provided in the last lesson against all request data every time user-provided data is being used in the script. You got to be very, very careful, because if you took a user variable, so like if you took dollar underscore get ID, and you took that and put it in your select statement, if something you do select star from people where ID equals dollar underscore get ID, anybody can then force in what they want into that SQL statement. So you could do where ID equals, 0, or, and 1 equal 1, and then you'll get every row. So, I mean, that's just part of SQL injection. So you got to make sure that you sanitize. You got to sanitize anything that comes from a user. And, we talked about that in the last lesson. It's just very important. All right, now it's time for the demo. What we're going to do is we're going to create a database with PHP MyAdmin. Sometimes it's abbreviated PMA. We will create 2 tables in PMA, one for array lookup data and one for historical entries. We will populate the PMA table for lookup data with colors from the array. From the array meaning from the array that you would have had in your last demo, or I'm sorry, last exercise, where you create an array of colors. I'm just going to populate it with a list of colors. Then what we'll do is I'll show you using PHP how to connect to it, how to select a database, and how to select data to verify that the color was actually there, and handling no errors returned, and insert items typed into the history table if it weren't there already. I want to flip to the exercise slide, because I think what you're going to do is this exact same demo, except there's one other thing. And yes, okay, so the exercise would be to do the demo plus adding the option to view historical entries in a list. Okay, so first I'll show you this, and then that's why we're going to record I'm going to show you how to record the historical data, and then you'll go through and add how to get the historical data back out. Okay, so creating a database with PHP MyAdmin. All right, let's see here. Creating a database. All right, go to browser, and as long as it's running, which we turned it on a while ago, as long as it's running, it should come up. What's it? There it goes. All right. Create a new database. Online PHP class. Create. Very straightforward to create a database. Now we're going to create 2, what's it say? 2 tables, one for array lookup data and one for historical entries. So what I'll do, okay, what I'll do is array lookup data. So I'll say colors. going to name, let's see, I'll just make it one field because it's a lookup table, and I'll make the index the lookup value. I mean the primary key. So the field is color name, and it is a varchar variable character. 255. We'll make it the max for now. No default. Can't be null. Let's see. Index primary key, does it let me choose it? It does let me choose it here. Okay, so we'll make it the primary key. And that should be sufficient. Do you want to debug this web page? No. Alright, I don't know why I did that, but anyway. Table colors created. Historical. Now to create another table, I have to go back to the actual database. Click here. Historical. And I want to have an ID value. I want to have the actual color typed, and I'll put a timestamp. So we'll do 3. ID. We can make this big. My main thing is to teach you how to use PHP to connect to MySQL. Not so much the MySQL components. If you're interested in addition to MySQL stuff, post that information in the forum, and we'll go from there. All right, so that color string and timestamp. I don't want to call it timestamp because I think timestamp's reserved. Datetime. And we'll make this of type timestamp. And then we will save. Alright, don't show this message again. No. Alright, so created those 2 tables. Now what? Populate with PMA the colors from the array. Okay, so we're going to populate with colors. Insert. Blue, green, red. I'll just do blue, green, and red for now. Okay. Alright. Connect to the database server. Okay, now we'll go into editor. Alright, here's our color.php. Connect to the database server. Okay. Con equals MySQL underscore connect. In this case, it is localhost. Oh, you know what? I don't have a username and password, do I? Okay, let's do this then. Go to home. Privileges. Add a new user. I could use root, but I don't actually want to do that. I want to show you how to grant a user here. So username, online PHP class, and coming from localhost. I will give you a tip though about this. If you have host set to any, my experience is if you have it set to any host, that actually excludes localhost because MySQL determines localhost and any host to be different. So if you want somebody to have localhost access as well as to be able to connect to the database from another host, then you have to give them both. So use text field. I'm just going to say OPC. Okay. We don't want any users. No global. No. Alright, now what I want to do is if I go into the database, I can then choose privileges specifically for this database. And I want to add... Oops. Wait, it took me back here? That's weird. This might be a different version than the one I'm used to, but anyway. Alright, let me go to global privileges here and choose edit. And I don't want global privilege, I want database specific privileges. Online PHP class, and this is database specific. What I'll do is I'll allow everything. Alright, let's see. I'll grant everything. Now what you have to do is reload from our privileges. There should be a reload. Where is... Yeah, this is just a note saying you gotta set up authentication if you really want to go in prod or something like that. There's usually a reload. I think it's kind of... Is it under server? Processes. Oops. Why did it do that? Processes. Hold on. No. Don't know. There's usually a reload, and you kind of need to do that. I mean, I wanted to make sure that if we do have to do it, that we can do it where? You know what I'll do then? I'll just issue a SQL flush privileges. It's a good question if it executed. There you go. Alright, so I just did it that way. And that'll guarantee that it has the username and password and the grant permissions. Alright, so alright. Online PHP class, and the password is OPC. Alright. Alright, what's the other stuff? You could put like or die, if you know, like or die couldn't connect. You can do that too if you really wanted to. Connect to database server, select the database. Okay. If not, MySQL underscore select underscore DB. Online PHP class con. Okay, you can do it that way. Select the database. Oh, we did that. Select data to verify lookup, handling no res return. Alright, well, before I do that, let me just make sure this works. Okay, good. This is the way I'll do it. query result equals MySQL underscore query. Select color from, what was the name of the, oh, the database is called, or the tables is called colors, and the column is called color underscore name. Okay, so color from colors. I'm tempted, since the lookup table, I'm tempted to build the array and then look up in the array rather than query for the result and see if, okay, this is what I'll do then. I will show you how to query each individual result, since we're talking MySQL in this section. When you do the exercise, do it by getting, I was going to say, do it by getting an array, by building an array of colors, reconstructing the array of colors from the items in the MySQL table. Okay, so I'll show you individual lookups. All right, so what we'll do then is we'll only connect to MySQL, since I'm going to show it to you this other way. I'll only connect to MySQL if we submitted the color. All right. All right. And something's wrong. What did I forget? Something doesn't look right. Yeah. On line 3. Oh. Ah. That's why. Alright. Select color name from colors. Where. Now see, I didn't sanitize this. Where. And I really should. I don't like doing it without showing you the sanitizing, but make sure you sanitize. I just wanted to get you to understand the PHP to MySQL connectivity in this case. All right, so where color name equals, and if it's a string, put the single quotes. If it's not, you don't need them. In fact, you can't put them if it's an integer in the database. All right, select color name from colors where color name equals con. I'm sorry, where color name equals con. Or color name equals PG color. So we're okay. If MySQL underscore num underscore, alright, you know, before I do that, nr equals MySQL underscore num underscore rows, query result. If number of rows is equal to 0, echo is not a valid color. Else, if nr equals 1, PG color. I was going to say if it equals 1, then set it, but it'll already be set. So I just need to handle that. So select database, verify handling no rows return, inserting items typed to history table if it wasn't there already. Okay. Oh, okay. So if it's not, then we're going to insert it into the history table. insert into, oh wait, it's here. Insert into, yeah, I know. Alright, insert into historical. And I gotta know the columns. It's ID, which is, oh, ID should be set to auto increment. My apologies on that one. So what I actually want to do is edit this. Color and date time. So auto increment attributes. No. 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 Oh, the default should be, oh, alright. So a couple of changes I gotta make to these. Auto increment. Usually that's not the way it's listed in my PHP MyAdmin, but anyway. So auto increment should be on the ID field. Yeah, I don't know why I'm getting these script errors. But anyway. And date time should default on update current timestamp. Okay, fine. That already handled it for me. So that's fine. All right, good. So historical, and the structure is color, which you don't have to specify. ID you don't have to specify because it's auto increment. Date time I don't have to specify because MySQL will automatically put in the current date and time. And color I do have to specify. So let's see here. So insert into historical, and the column is called color, and the values is BG color. Okay. Another one. Sorry. Close the query, then close the query, then this is really nice that it tells you matching up the parentheses. Okay. Else add it to the historical table. Close. Alright, if I choose, I'm gonna choose purple, which I did not put into the table. That is not a valid color. And if I go to the browser and I go to historical, it looks like it did not add it. Oh, weird. Insert into. Tell you what I'll do. In this case, this is how you troubleshoot queries. Okay, I'm gonna echo the query. And put it in historical if it wasn't there already? Okay. Oh, if it wasn't in the historical table already. Oh, well, it's not going to be. You know what? I don't know if I meant. Oh, right, because it was trying to catch. But I put timestamp. So what I'll do is I'll always. Oh, right, because if it's equal to not a valid color. Yeah, okay, well, this is. Right. Oh, well, never mind. I was going to say you echo it out and then you put it into PHP MyAdmin and look at the result. But in reality, there's no problem. It's because it was in the else statement. So, all right, I'm always going to add everything into the. In this case, my thing here says inserting items typed to history table if it wasn't there already meant that if somebody kept typing the same color, we were going to only add it once. But because I put the date and timestamp so you can get an idea of what gets typed in when, we'll change that so that we always insert items into the history table so that we know what was typed. Alright, so if I type purple, and I should get, function name must be, oh, was there a function name? Oh, $, that's silly. Haha. Yeah, we can't call a function. You can't call that was just saying fatal, function name must be a string. Anyway, so purple. Alright, now if I go back to browser and I go to online PHP class, there's still nothing in the historical table. Why is that? So it's historical. Alright, so we are going to do this. And then I'll get to see. And I'll take the copy of that and I'll paste it into SQL. Right, of course no database was selected. So here, you have an error. Right near color. Oh, I copied BG color? Wait, what did the preview say? The preview said white. So how come when I copied this? Why is it pasting BG color when I'm actually copying? It's also reloading the page every time I click the tab, which is rather annoying. But anyway. Alright, so insert into alright, I'm just gonna then change. I wonder if there's a setting to keep it from refreshing. Tools. Yeah, you know what? I can look at this another time. I'm just curious. Anyway, all right. So SQL. I have an error. Insert into historical. Really? All right. Let me see something. All right. Never mind. I'm such a moron. The column name doesn't get quoted. If I did that, it would work. Yeah. And I'm actually going to delete this from here. And then what I'll do is I'll go back to internal preview. Go back to the editor, comment out the echo line. Say purple. Not about color. Sorry, meant go to browse. PHP class. Still didn't. Oh, because I didn't change it in the code. I just changed it. Okay. There we go. And this is Eastern. Actually, no, it's not. It looks like it's my. Why does it say midnight? Weird. As you can see in the clock, it's 11:42, not 12:42. Wednesday, July 7th. And that says that it's already July. It has an hour later. Whatever. Okay. I don't know why it's saying that, but regardless, you have historical. Now, if I go and I do, I think I made blue a valid color, didn't I? Okay. If I go back to the browser, okay, so that's how you do it. Okay, so then the exercise is to do the demo and plus add the option to view the historical entries in a list. And like I said earlier, what you may want to do is, I mean, you can do the demo, you can do the exercise in the same way I did the demo, plus add the option to view the historical entries, or you can do it you where you read the database table, the lookup table once, build an array from that lookup table. That'll also get you using for each loops and that kind of stuff. And then basically reconstruct the array, but construct it from the database. Okay? Because then what you have the option to do down the line is for your inserts, when you insert it into the database, it's as if you're updating the array. But in either case, you just cut down on the number of queries that you do, the number of select queries, if you reconstruct the array. However, not really, because if you hit the page again, you're reconstructing the array on the second page hit. Um, if you constructed the array and put it in a session, which we'll talk about down the line, then it's always there for that particular user. So anyway, that is the exercise. This was a fairly lengthy unit because MySQL is a pretty good topic to cover. I believe you have the foundational elements leading up to the time, so I think it was ready to talk about MySQL this particular unit. And go ahead and do the exercise and post anything that comes up along the way. Feel free to post it in the forum, and we'll address it then. With that, I will see you in the next unit.